I never received it, that's all I said. One sentence, 3 words, spoken just loud enough to cut through the clinking champagne glasses and the overly loud jazz music blasting from the rooftop speakers. My name is Christopher Carlson. I'm 48 years old, and I've been building corporate IT systems for over 20 years. 8 of those were in the Navy doing cybersecurity for submarine communications. You learn patience underwater. You learn that every system has a weakness, and every weakness has a solution. Most importantly, you learn to think 3 moves ahead. Our CEO, Anthony Palmer, a man who uses too much hair gel and too few ethics, had just raised his glass to me. Well, to Chris, which is what he calls me when he's pretending to know his employees. To Chris, he beamed, looking out at the crowd like a game show host. He hit every security milestone this quarter and earned himself that fat $35,000 bonus. Cheers! Applause followed. Laughter. I even heard someone from sales yell, "Buy us all drinks, Chris!" I didn't laugh. I didn't raise my glass. I just looked up at Tony from across the terrace, met his gaze, and said those 3 words. I never received it. And that's when the party died. It didn't collapse exactly. It bled out slowly in silence. The CFO, Kenneth Bradley, who always smells like old money and antacid, twitched hard enough to almost spill his drink. The HR director, Patricia Williams, started coughing into her napkin like she'd suddenly forgotten how to swallow shrimp cocktail. Tony, to his credit, didn't flinch. He just chuckled that fake laugh he uses when investors ask about overdue reports. Always modest. Well, it's in the system, Chris. Payroll must have processed it already. I blinked once. I checked this morning. Nothing deposited. Pat made a noise halfway between a laugh and a sneeze. "I'll have finance look into it first thing Monday," Tony said, his voice a little too bright. "But hey, enjoy tonight. You deserve to celebrate." "I'm sure I do," I said. "Just want to know what I'm celebrating." And with that, I set my glass down, still full, and walked off the rooftop. Left Tony standing there like a balloon with the air leaking out. Listen, I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't scream into my steering wheel or fire off an angry email. In the Navy, they teach you emotional discipline. Panic kills missions. Anger clouds judgment. So I just drove home to my empty house. My daughter Emma's at college now, made myself a grilled cheese, and opened my laptop. Emma had called earlier that week, stressed about her sophomore year tuition payment. "Dad, the bursar's office is asking about the balance. I thought we were covered." "We are, sweetheart," I'd told her. "Just waiting on my quarterly bonus to clear. Should be any day now." That $35,000 wasn't just my bonus. It was Emma's spring semester. It was the promise I'd made to her mother before the divorce that our daughter would graduate debt-free. It was 20 years of nights and weekends building systems that kept this company profitable. So when I opened that laptop, I wasn't just angry, I was calculating. I started pulling files. Because here's the thing, I wasn't confused, I wasn't even shocked, I was prepared. 3 months ago, I'd asked for a copy of my original employment contract for tax purposes, I said. Legal sent it over without a second thought. I saved it in a folder titled, "In Case They Get Stupid." That folder had 27 other documents in it. Vendor invoices I'd flagged, internal memos I wasn't supposed to see, a PDF from 2 years ago titled Bonus Allocations, Executive Discretion, a spreadsheet showing budget reallocations that just happened to divert $35,000 from my department to miscellaneous development, approved by Tony himself. And my personal favorite, a screenshot of a Slack message where Ken asked if it was okay to defer Chris's Q4 bonus to cover Vail expenses. Vail, the executive ski retreat, the one I wasn't invited to. The one with the $22,000 hotel invoice, spa receipts labeled client engagement, and 4 dinners for 2 charged under mentorship sessions. I could have laughed if I weren't so utterly done. See, I didn't get where I am by being loud. I'm not the one who bangs on tables or leads motivational chants. I'm the one who fixes things quietly, efficiently, without drama. In submarine warfare, the loudest boat is the dead boat. And when people like Tony forget that quiet doesn't mean powerless, well, that's when things start to break. I sent 1 email before I went to bed, just 1. No attachments, no explanations, just the subject line. Clause 7.4, Notice of Invocation. To be clear, I wrote that clause myself 3 years ago. Slipped it into my contract after watching too many old boys get handshakes and handouts for projects I delivered. HR never read it. Legal skimmed it. Tony signed it during a budget crisis while scarfing pad thai on a Zoom call. Clause 7.4. Failure to disperse performance bonus within 7 calendar days of confirmed milestone completion entitles the employee to initiate proprietary protection protocols without further notice. They'd forgotten about it. I hadn't. The Navy taught me something else. Always have an exit strategy. Always know where the life rafts are. Always have backup plans for your backup plans. They were about to learn why submarine crews don't mess with the sonar operator. Monday morning smelled like panic and burnt coffee, not that anyone would admit it. On the surface, the office was its usual beige purgatory. People walked briskly. Phones rang with exaggerated urgency. Keyboards clicked with the desperate rhythm of workers pretending everything was normal. But beneath the fluorescent hum, something had shifted. I could feel it like a change in water pressure when you're 200 feet down. The submarine taught me to read atmospheric tension. Right now, the pressure was building. By 9:12 a.m., Pat from HR had already stopped by my desk twice under the guise of just checking in. She looked like she hadn't slept, dark circles under her eyes, coffee cup trembling slightly in her hands. "Hey, Chris," she said, too cheerful. "So weird about the bonus thing Friday night. Probably just payroll being slow, right? You know how Ken's team is with the systems." I didn't even bother looking up from my screen. I was reviewing network logs, same as any other Monday. Sure. Probably. I mean, these things happen. Technology glitches. I'm sure it'll sort itself out. Still didn't look up. I'm sure it will. She hovered for another 30 seconds, clearly wanting me to say more. When I didn't, she drifted away like smoke. At 9:47 a.m., I noticed something interesting. 3 different junior developers had tried to access the vendor payment automation system I'd built. All 3 got error messages, authentication failures. The overnight protocols were working perfectly. Kevin from Accounts Payable walked by my cube at 10:01 a.m. He stopped, pretended to check his phone, then casually said, "Hey Chris, you didn't change any system passwords recently, did you? Some of the automated processes seem to be acting up." "Nope," I said. "Haven't changed anything," which was technically true. I hadn't changed anything. I just activated the dormant security protocols I'd embedded 3 years ago. At 10:03 a.m., I got the email I'd been waiting for. Subject line, "Contract Review. Urgent from Elizabeth Foster, Lead Counsel. She asked me to join a legal review meeting at 10:30 sharp. Small conference room, just her and me. No need to bring anything," the email said, so I brought everything. The walk to the legal department felt like walking to the bridge during a silent running drill. Every face I passed looked tense, uncertain. Word was spreading through the office like sonar pings. Something was wrong with the systems. Something was wrong with payroll. Something was wrong, and nobody could figure out what. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and fear. Liz was already seated when I arrived, fingers pressed together like she was trying to physically hold her thoughts in place. She didn't offer me coffee. She didn't smile. Her usually perfect blonde hair looked like she'd been running her fingers through it. She held a printed copy of my contract in her lap, pages slightly creased, one pink post-it marking page 7. I sat, set my leather folder on the table, and waited. In submarine ops, silence is a weapon. Let the other person fill the vacuum. They'll tell you everything you need to know. "Chris," she cleared her throat, "have you ever exercised Clause 7.4 before?" "No," I said, "but the clause is valid. Signed, countersigned, time-stamped. You'll find the backup in the contract repository. Document hash Charlie 746B. She blinked. I continued. "It was added as a condition of continued employment during the 2020 Q3 restructuring. I wrote it myself, ran it past outside counsel, and sent it to legal for incorporation." Tony approved it over lunch on October 12th, said it sounded cool and assertive. Liz looked down again, flipping to the marked page. She read the clause aloud slowly, like each word was a depth charge she was trying to diffuse. Clause 7.4, failure to disperse performance bonus within 7 calendar days of confirmed milestone completion entitles the employee to initiate proprietary protection protocols without further notice. Her voice thinned as she got to the end. She looked up at me, pale. You're saying you invoked this yesterday? I am. And those protocols? She hesitated. They're not just symbolic, are they? They're layered, I said calmly. Encryption, access restrictions, decoupling of process integrations, auto-expiry triggers. Nothing irreversible yet. Her pen slipped slightly from her fingers. The documentation? I nodded toward my folder. Protected under individual authorship until the bonus is legally fulfilled. Page 10 of the clause addendum. You'll find it notarized. She stared at me for a long moment, no longer trying to hide the tremble in her jaw. In the Navy, we called this "oh shit" recognition. The moment someone realizes they're in deeper water than they thought. Tony said he mentioned the bonus at the party to be gracious. He assumed it had been paid. It hadn't. Have you spoken to finance? I spoke to my bank. I spoke to payroll. I reviewed every deposit since October. I even pulled the ACH batch logs for the period. My bonus isn't there. She stood and walked over to the conference phone, dialed an internal line. Get Tony in here now. We sat in silence for 3 minutes. I could hear the clock tick, the HVAC hum, Liz's breathing pick up speed like a runner about to collapse. Through the glass conference room door, I watched the office buzz with nervous energy. People clustering by the coffee machine, whispering. Someone from IT walking purposefully toward the server room. Kevin from accounts payable on his phone gesturing frantically. The systems they relied on were choking, not crashing, that would be obvious. Just struggling, like a submarine running on minimum power. Every process taking twice as long. Every automation requiring manual intervention. Tony burst in like he was crashing a game show. "What's the emergency?" he said, out of breath and still carrying a protein shake. His tie was slightly askew, and I noticed a small coffee stain on his shirt cuff. Liz stood and handed him the contract. "No pleasantries, no preamble. You signed this. You activated this." He flipped pages with that same performative gusto he uses at shareholder meetings. Then he stopped. "Read the clause." Blinked. "Wait, this is real?" "Very," I said. "I thought it was like a flex, a negotiation line." "It's a clause," I said, "and it's been triggered." The room suddenly felt smaller. Tony looked like a man who'd just realized he was locked in a flooding compartment, and the water was rising fast. Tony looked up, jaw clenched. "So what? You're locking down our systems. Over a bonus?" Liz cut him off before I could. "No, he's legally authorized to initiate protective actions on proprietary frameworks he authored. That includes quite a lot, Tony. Including operations protocols," I added quietly. His face drained. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "he could lose access to the systems he built?" "No," I replied. "You've already lost them." Access was time-limited. The protocols kicked in at midnight. Tony looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Liz just stared down at the table like it might offer her a way out. "I'll fix it," Tony muttered. "I'll call payroll. We'll push it through right now." "That would constitute retroactive coercion," I said evenly. Clause 7.4 defines any bonus payment post-invocation as bribery to reverse a protective protocol. That language is very specific. He turned to Liz. "This can't hold up." She didn't answer because she knew it would. Tony spent the rest of that meeting doing what overconfident men do best, bluffing with the desperation of someone realizing the chips weren't in his stack. First came denial dressed up as concern. Then came delay wrapped in false charm and administrative jargon. I've seen it before. Hell, I'd lived it for the better part of a decade at that company, but this time, I wasn't the quiet fixer behind the curtain. I was the one holding the sonar, and Tony had just pinged active in hostile waters. "It's got to be a payroll glitch," he said, pacing now as if motion might summon credibility. "I'll get Ken on it. He's probably already flagged it." "Would you like me to forward the screenshots?" I asked calmly. No bite, just offering facts like a waitress offering coffee refills. Tony blinked. "Screenshots?" I opened my folder and slid a single printed sheet across the table. Transaction history from my bank, highlighted and annotated. Underneath it, stapled neatly, was an internal log from our own accounting software. Payment batch IDs, disbursement dates, amounts, and approval chains. "Checked and verified," I said. "All bonuses for Q4 performance were issued as of the 15th per schedule. Mine wasn't." Liz leaned in to examine the paperwork. Her mouth a tight line. Tony didn't look. He just turned toward the door like maybe there was an escape route hiding behind the coat rack. "I mean, this doesn't make sense," he muttered. "You're telling me the system skipped you?" "No," I said. "I'm telling you someone did." Silence. Then I slid out the second document. The real torpedo. "Here's where it gets interesting," I said. 3 identical authorizations. 3 redirected payments. Same coded memo tag. Project realignment. One of them was mine. Tony's protein shake slipped slightly in his hand. I continued. The other 2? Executives who hadn't even met their deliverables. Ghost bonuses. And then there's this. I placed the third sheet down. A payout to a consultant named Jay Spencer. No employee ID. No tax documentation. No performance log. Just a wire transfer to an out-of-state account. Liz picked up the paper. How much? $28,000. Authorized by Ken Bradley. Memo line. Retention bonus. Confidential. Who's Jay Spencer? That's the beautiful part, I said. I checked our contractor directory. No Spencer. I checked payroll. Nothing. Then I checked our new hire and separation logs. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Sometimes the pause before the depth charge explodes is more terrifying than the explosion itself. They used a template for onboarding ghost employees, one we use for building dummy access credentials for product testing. Someone copy-pasted that template and created an entire personnel record, enough to justify contractor disbursement. Tony had gone completely still. Even his breathing seemed controlled, like he was trying not to make any sudden movements. The signature on the authorization, I continued, was Ken Bradley, but the request originated from an executive assistant account. Care to guess whose? Liz looked up sharply. Whose? Tony's. The room went dead quiet. Through the glass door, I could see the office in full damage control mode. Kevin from accounting was practically running between cubicles. Someone from IT was on the phone, gesturing frantically. The morning coffee crowd had turned into nervous clusters of whispered conversations. Tony finally found his voice. "You're saying I authorized a fake employee? I'm saying someone using your administrative access did, along with budget reallocations that just happened to divert my bonus to cover Vail expenses." I slid out the final document, including spa receipts labeled client engagement and 4 dinners for 2 charged under mentorship sessions. The Slack screenshot hit the table like a war crimes tribunal exhibit. Ken's message to Tony. "Can we defer Chris's Q4 bonus to cover Vail? Her bonus covers the last villa. I'll handle spin if she asks." Tony's response, a thumbs up emoji. Timestamp. 2 days after I'd hit my final Q4 milestone. 2 days after I'd earned what they stole. Liz read it twice, then looked at Tony like he'd just confessed to killing her dog. "My God," she whispered, "what have you done?" But I wasn't done yet. In submarine warfare, you don't fire just one torpedo, you fire a spread. Multiple warheads, multiple angles, multiple points of impact. "I've been building an audit trail for 3 years, I said. Not because I was paranoid, but because I was experienced. Every vendor payment, every bonus authorization, every budget reallocation. All of it logged, time-stamped, and stored on an air-gapped drive. Tony finally looked directly at me. "What do you want?" "I don't want anything from you," I said. "I've already sent a preliminary report to the board's internal audit committee." Anonymous, of course. Just enough breadcrumbs to force someone's hand. Liz's phone started buzzing, then buzzing again and again. She glanced at the screen and went pale. "It's William Henderson, board member." "You might want to take that," I said, standing up. "Tell him I'll be available for questions." As I walked toward the door, Tony called after me. "Chris, we can work this out. We can make this right." I turned back one last time. "You had your chance to make it right. You chose Vail instead." And then I left them there. Tony drowning in his own incompetence, Liz frantically answering her phone, and somewhere in the distance the sound of a company's leadership about to implode. The hunt was on, and I'd already painted the target. Friday came like Judgment Day. By then, the office felt like a submarine taking on water. Emergency meetings behind closed doors, hushed phone calls, people avoiding eye contact in the hallways. Even the coffee machine seemed to be whispering. I got the call Thursday evening. William Henderson, external board member. A voice I hadn't heard in 3 years but still respected. "Christopher," he said, "no pleasantries, we need to talk." "I'm listening. Tomorrow." Boardroom. 9 a.m., sharp, bring everything. I always do. That night, I called Emma. She was studying for midterms, stressed about her course load, worried about money. Again. Dad, I hate asking, but the bursar's office called again about spring semester. They need confirmation on the payment plan. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. It's handled. You keep saying that, but trust me, Em, your tuition's covered. Focus on your exams. After I hung up, I looked at the folder on my kitchen table. 27 documents, 3 years of evidence, 8 months of planning for this exact moment. In the Navy, we had a saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. No rushed movements, no wasted energy. Just methodical execution of a carefully planned operation. The boardroom at 9 a.m. was a mausoleum dressed in mahogany, 12 chairs filled, 2 empty. One reserved for Tony's credibility, which had died somewhere around Wednesday. The other for Ken Bradley, who'd called in sick, probably from his lawyer's office. I sat at the far end, not at the table, but close enough to see the whites of their eyes. I didn't dress for war, I dressed for court. Black suit, white shirt, navy tie, documents in one hand, the calm weight of months of preparation in the other. Next to me sat Daniel Brooks, external compliance auditor, quiet as a whisper, sharp as a sonar ping. He was here to observe and, if needed, verify. Liz stood at the head of the table, flanked by 2 of her senior associates in the kind of leather-bound binder that only shows up when things have gone nuclear. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 days. Tony wasn't here. Smart move. Ken looked like he'd been found floating face down in a swimming pool of his own bad decisions. William Henderson called the meeting to order. Clause 7.4 was drafted into Mr. Carlson's employment contract in 2020, authorized by CEO Palmer, and legally binding per corporate policy at the time. Liz opened the binder and read it aloud. Then she looked up. The breach is confirmed. The protocols have executed. Mr. Brooks? Daniel nodded once. Those protocols are lawful, trackable, and technically sound. What does that mean in practice? Asked one board member, adjusting his glasses like maybe that would help him see a solution. It means your operation's backbone is watermarked, I said calmly. Every process I authored, scheduling systems, vendor automations, cross-department syncs, is traceable and currently locked under my licensing control. A murmur moved through the room like sonar pings bouncing off a hull breach. Watermarked as in digitally? Yes. I've embedded unique syntax markers in the logic strings of every proprietary model I built. If duplicated or migrated, they trip a compliance flag and invalidate the process integrity. It's in the logs, documented, time-stamped. And no one noticed? Another board member asked. No one looked, I said. And as long as I was paid, it didn't matter. A longer silence followed, the kind that hangs in the air like smoke after an explosion. Then Liz closed the binder. In light of the confirmed breach and the documented evidence of fund misappropriation, legal formally recommends the immediate termination of CEO Anthony Palmer and CFO Kenneth Bradley. She slid a summary across the table. Their direct involvement in the reallocation of Mr. Carlson's bonus, the creation of fraudulent contractor payments, and the use of company funds for personal expenses has been substantiated via internal records and corroborated by external audit. Nobody objected. Ken hadn't even shown up to defend himself. Tony's lawyer had submitted a resignation letter that morning. What's our exposure? A board member asked. Liz turned to me. I met her gaze, then addressed the table. Minimal if you move decisively. I haven't filed the SEC complaint. I haven't activated external claim procedures. But the longer you delay formal resolution, the more complicated this gets. What would formal resolution entail? I stood without theatrics, walked to the head of the table, folder in hand. This is not a negotiation, I began. This is asset recovery. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pace. I spoke like someone who'd been underwater for 20 years and finally surfaced with all the oxygen. You owe me $35,000. That's the easy part. I opened my folder and laid the first document flat. You also owe me compensation for breach of contract. Penalties incurred per Clause 7.4, outlined in Subarticle 7.4.1, which you never amended. I laid down the second document. And licensing fees. I own these processes legally. Until the breach is resolved, you do not have the right to continue using them without license. I handed William the typed list. Restitution, full bonus plus accrued interest. Clause 7.4 penalties, tripled per contractual timeline. Licensing fees, retroactive to the date of breach. Public correction of internal records, and immediate implementation of vendor audit protocols to prevent future fraud. Are you staying with the company? William asked. I met his eyes. I'm not staying. I don't want a promotion. I don't want a corner office or a restructured reporting line. I built this company's backbone while Tony played golf and Ken played God. You enabled it, and now you're reaping it. I gathered my folder. You'll get what you're owed: documentation, transition notes, all operational protocols, once terms are met and confirmed by counsel. Until then, your systems remain protected under individual licensing. A silence stretched so long it bordered on surreal. Then William finally said, "You could have destroyed us completely." "No," I said. "Tony and Ken already did. I'm just not letting you profit from the wreckage." 3 weeks later, Emma called. "Dad, you won't believe this. My student account just got a massive payment. Like all 4 years covered massive." "That's great, sweetheart," I said, looking out at my backyard where I'd been spending more time lately. "Guess your old man finally cashed in some chips. What happened with work? You sound different. Good different. Just took care of some old business, Em." Sometimes patience pays off. Tony's LinkedIn now shows seeking new opportunities. Ken Bradley is selling insurance in Phoenix. And me? I had 6 job offers from competitors who'd heard about the audit. Sometimes the quiet ones win. Sometimes methodical beats flashy. And sometimes, just sometimes, the submarine surfaces when the enemy least expects it. But not today. Today, I'm just a father who kept his promise to his daughter. Mission accomplished.